Welcome to It's All Mental, a podcast from Everyturn Mental Health. Mental isn't a bad word. There's no health without mental health. We're here to talk about every high and low. No limits, just good conversations.
Hi everyone, I'm Emily Evans from Everyturn Mental Health. I'm here with Martha today and we're recording ahead of Mental Health Awareness Week. First of all, just to say, Mental Health Awareness Week, we recognise at Everyturn is really a great opportunity for us to have conversations around all subjects around mental health, but we also recognise that mental health is important throughout the year, not just for this week. But yeah, a great opportunity. And the subject of this year's Mental Health Awareness Week is anxiety. So we're going to have a conversation around that. Welcome, Martha. Thank you so much for joining us today. If I can just ask you to introduce yourself first of all, that would be lovely.
Yeah, hi, I'm Martha Heighton. I'm the Community Engagement Team Manager in Nottinghamshire. So I work for the Knots Talking Therapies part of Everyturn. And my role is really about talking about mental health really out in the community and promoting the services that we offer. So it is something that I'm very passionate about. Additionally, so this year's theme is anxiety. I also run an anxiety and depression support group in Nottinghamshire that I've been running for the last couple of years. So this is definitely something that's sort of part and parcel of my everyday life that I'm happy to talk about. So
yeah, brilliant. Well, yeah, thanks again so much, Martha. So if we can kick off just with a kind of, I guess, what anxiety means to you and, anything around your kind of experience of anxiety, that would be lovely.
yeah, I think anxiety has been a massive part of my life, and it's sort of I think for like a lot of people it jumped into my life really. It just appeared. I was sort of mid-teens, and I started getting panic attacks, and I think at the time, I had no idea what was happening. I was at school, I was just completely I can't even I can remember it so well, even though it's quite a long time ago now. And I just started having severe panic attacks, and that really impacted my day-to-day life. I don't think that, anybody really informed me of what it was that was happening to me, even though I sort of did speak out about it eventually because I'd stopped going to school pretty much. I think it was that trigger. It started at school and then I couldn't go. And so I was skipping school. So then I spoke to the teacher about it and they sort of said, oh, nobody explained to me. And even when I went to the GP, they sort of said I might need to do a bit more exercise. And when I think about that now, I'm so angry because I was if I'd have got the right support at the time, maybe that would have improved things for me moving further down the line. That panic disorder, I suppose I had quite a severe panic, so I was probably panicking about 7-8 times a day. And if you've ever had a panic attack, and I was a child really when I look back, that's over the years. It's hard to explain my whole journey because I think I've had every type of anxiety. It's like it will go away and then it will turn up in a different form. So it's sort of, I suppose it sort of manifested into like obsessive compulsive thoughts I used to get. I've had health anxiety, and then sort of say 17, 18, that sort of age, 19, I was in a very bad way, and I used to use alcohol to manage my anxiety because otherwise I don't think I could have functioned as a person. So I used to drink a lot. I used to take medication a lot because I was in pain with different things. So that was, it brought this whole raft of different things that happened. And then I suppose then I had my daughter, and I think it's so important for people to be aware if you've got a history of anxiety that was triggering beyond. I went into sort of like a psychosis with anxiety, really, to a state where it felt like the ground was moving. I couldn't leave the house. Health anxiety, I used to think some very irrational things that I was just going to die all the time. And I suppose from them, it's just been different experience. And then I've had generalized anxiety. I'd say from that, when I started to improve, then I said, I'm just probably generalized anxiety disorder, although I am the best I've been probably since, my teens. And there's peaks and troughs. I've not, sometimes I've been worse than other times, but now I think I've sort of got to a stage and used all of the tools that I've learned along the way, which I should have learned a long time ago. And I do manage it really, really well, but it still lives there. It's still part of me, you know, in a sense. So yeah, it means a lot to me, really. It's a very sort of important thing to talk about, because I just think, God, I don't think people have an understanding, if they've only sort of just felt a bit anxious now and again, how it can really impact people's lives and what it does to people. So
yeah, definitely. And that, you know, so interesting hearing you talk about, I guess, kind of how things have changed over time, and, you know, and that's, I guess, you know, it's a positive thing, isn't it? Kind of, I guess, where we are now, where the conversation around mental health and anxiety, that, you know, it is just much more normal to have kind of conversations about it. But kind of, you know, years ago that just wasn't the case. So there wasn't the language to be able to talk about it. It just wasn't, you know, things weren't spoken about in that way. So, you know,
I mean, that was
you know,
20 years ago, and I mean, I do think things should have moved on. Whether people still, I think people still struggle to find the support they need or get the reactions that they want from people in terms of understanding. So there's still work that we need to do, but I do think there is massive improvement. But I go to groups all the time, and you always get some old person say, oh well, it's the new fandangled thing, this mental health. Honestly, I get it all the time, and I go, really? So no one ever suffered with the nerves back in, you know, when you were young? There was never someone who you sort of said, oh, he's gonna, you know, or they're going a bit low, or never. There wasn't shell shock or anything. And I sort of get a bit agitated when they say it, because I just think, well, that's ridiculous. But yeah, we sort of do talk about it a bit more, I think.
Yeah, and again, it's really interesting, isn't it, in terms of language and how that's used, and things like, oh, you know, yeah, about nerves and different things that would have been, you know, yeah, like
my grandma says it quietly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that language piece is so interesting. But thank you for sharing that, Martha. That's, you know, it is really super insightful and interesting. Can you talk to us a bit, I guess, around kind of you talked a little bit about the kind of physical symptoms, the kind of, you know, the emotional symptoms. Can you kind of just give us a little bit more in terms of kind of how that kind of comes across for you, in terms of how it can make you feel physically and emotionally?
Anxiety is absolutely bonkers, because it affects your nervous system. It affects every single thing from the top of your head to the tip of your toe. So it's like, I've had symptoms that you would not ever think, you know, like, if you panic attack's one thing. If you have a panic attack, I mean, that feeling of sudden rush of heat and sweating, and your heart absolutely pounding, and you're going dizzy, and that's a real rush of you know, fear. That's, you know, it does feel like you're having a heart attack or something like that. I think in terms of like generalized anxiety and things, it's like every ache and pain you can think of, like headaches and neck aches and back aches and leg aches and twitches and numbness in your hands or feet, just to keep going a bit dizzy all the time, which makes you think, you know, and all of those stomach problems. I mean, I had, especially when I first started school, the stomach issues it used to cause me, which then caused me more anxiety, because I was thinking I need to go to the toilet because when I panic, it makes it go, you know, and it's such a horrible feeling. Feeling sick. Honestly, the list is I've had weird things, and I've, like, you know, and that's why often people go to the doctor so many times, because they don't understand it is anxiety, and that it can do that to you. You think, well, that can't be that. I think emotionally, you know, it warps your sense of thinking. So you've got your rational brain, and that will sort of, you know, say I've got a headache, for example. A normal rational person, I've got a headache, that's fine, I'm, you know, I'll go and take a tablet or lie down. But you become irrational, and a thought will pop in, and it will say, you know, well, it might be a brain tumor. And then you think, well, it probably is a brain tumor, and then I'm going to die, and then what if I die, and then what will happen to this, and what, and then that thought, it like, it just explodes. I use a bit of an analogy in my group about anxiety, really, because I say it's like you know, like the old coal fires, and something lit the flame, whatever it was, lit that flame of anxiety. But all of those thoughts, you're keeping chucking things on that fire, and you're keeping that anxiety burning, you know, because that's what those thoughts are doing, because your body doesn't know the difference between reality and, you know, your thoughts. So, you know, when you're thinking it, your body will react. So you're keeping it alive, not on purpose. It just, that's how it goes. And occasionally you chuck a bit of gasoline on it, and that's when you're completely. And I always find that a good way of describing it. And it's finding ways to chuck some water on that fire. That's what we need to be doing.
Yeah, definitely. I love that analogy. It's a really nice kind of visual way to think about it, isn't it? And yeah, really, really powerful. You mentioned that the group a couple of times, Martha. I'd love to hear a bit more about kind of how that came about, and how that works and how it supports people. That would be lovely to hear.
Yeah, so the group came about. I sort of worked at my old job. I worked working with self-help groups, and this group was run by an elderly guy for quite a number of years, but he became too poorly to carry it on. And I suppose because it was an anxiety group, and because of how I feel about anxiety, and it kind of came about, and I thought, I can't let this group go. I've got to take it on. Do you know what I mean? So I took it on, unfortunately, back end of 2019, so it had a very good established group. Then we had good, I'd say around 30 members that would come quite regular. And then COVID hit, and I did try to keep it going on Zoom and things like that. But anyway, we've restarted last January, and we've sort of just rebuilding the group, but we've added depression onto it as well, because we do know that anxiety and depression often run hand in hand. And I've found that as well with my experience, because anxiety exhausts you.
Yeah,
you're so knackered that eventually you plummet. And that so often it does go hand in hand. But the group's really great. I think that for people who are struggling, it's like just having someone who understands that. And sometimes we even laugh, because we were discussing some of the irrational fears that we've had, and people saying the oddest ones, and it is quite amusing, because actually when you talk about it, it's like that sounds mad. Why would you panic about that? But we all know that that's not, that's how anxiety works. And it's just a chance really for people to be able to come, and we don't always talk about anxiety because sometimes you don't want to talk about it, but we just know that people understand. So yeah.
Oh, it sounds amazing. And I think the power of the connecting with people who have had similar experiences, it's just so powerful, isn't it, to be able to connect people, and like you said, share those experiences, support each other, but just have that kind of really great kind of safe space to be able to talk about their experiences.
Definitely. I think just getting with people that understand is just so important. I think there's different levels of support for anxiety that you need to sort of take into account. And I think there's medication, there's therapy, and then there's talking, and there's meeting other people that get it. And I think that the three in combination, or potentially some people may not want to use medication, and that shouldn't be a first thing, but it is a tool. But yeah, I think it's definitely one of those things that really does help you. And you share tips. You have things you've never even tried. Like I always said, I was saying that singing. If you're gonna have a panic attack, start singing, because it does your breathing. And then somebody was like, I've never thought about that before. That's really random. I says, I know it is, but it does actually work. So little tips and hints and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that was something I was going to ask you about as well. So that's a really nice link to it. Is kind of I'm sure there'll be people listening who are really kind of resonate with what you're talking about. Some people may already have the kind of support and tools that they need, but for anyone who is kind of quite early in kind of experiencing anxiety or these kind of symptoms, what would you say in terms of, I guess, kind of the kind of great ways to get support, or the first steps in terms of getting support?
I think obviously accessing NHS talking therapies is a great thing to be able to do, because I do think they will have so many tools, and there's so many different ways that you can manage it, and I've tried all of them, and it's about finding the ones that work for you. So with sort of therapy, they will examine those with you, and then you can go away and try some, and then you can come back. So I definitely think that that's important. I think talking to people about how you're feeling, people that you trust, and opening up. I think if it does manifest and you do need to go to the GP, and you do need to go on medication, then that's fine as well, because that I've found that antidepressants are quite a taboo thing, but actually they've helped me at times when I couldn't. Sometimes it's become too overwhelming, and you need to be in a certain place to be able to take all the tools on board. And maybe that's a difficult thing to try and understand, but when, say, I've been too anxious, it's very difficult to take the tools and be able to manage it. Whereas if I can just get to a level playing field a little bit, just a little bit better, then I can start to do things. And then research really around different tips and ideas. So it's about retraining your brain, and it's a mental feat. It's a really challenging thing to be able to do, to have to do. It is possible. So, now it's about, I do thought control, which is like you practice for so long. Once that thought tips, I can fight it. I can, 99% of the time I can go, no, you're gone. I'm not engaging with that thought. And that's took me a very long time to be able to do that. And it's a lot of practice. And things like meditation, when I first put it on, I thought, I can't focus on this. I can't do it. It's really, I can't do it. I'm not that kind of person. But then the more and more you do it, and the more you're training your brain to react to that thing, then it's actually it starts to work. It does, and it's a slow burner sometimes, but it's practice and practice and practice, and some failures, but just don't give up really, and keep trying all the tools that there is out there, and some amazing videos and information and different websites that you can look on, and if there is groups, I think we're quite a unique group, but there's lots of like well-being groups where so many people have anxiety. It's unbelievable. I find it so sad really when I'm out and about in the community, how many people do struggle as soon as you sort of mention it. It's affecting so many of us, and we need to be able to reach out to people and talk about it.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. I mean, that's some great tips there. Thank you so much. I love the everything you're speaking about there, but particularly kind of the training your brain and the thoughts, and I really resonate with that in terms of just kind of just the basic thing of recognizing that a thought is just a thought. A thought isn't the truth. It's just a thought that's going through your head, and training yourself to kind of recognize that you're having those thoughts, and then enable yourself to be able to kind of recognize that just because you're having that thought, that doesn't mean that is correct. It's just
real. It's quite amusing that it's not. I mean, it's never been amusing, but you have to find humour in everything, don't you? I see anxiety as like, I talk about it like it's something else. Do you know what I mean? It's like if I'm going to do something and it comes up, I go, I'm not engaging with you. Do you know what I mean? It's like having a little, and that might probably makes me seem even more a bit bonkers, but
no, not at all.
It's more like I've recognised it as not me, and I think people get the idea that anxious people are these sort of weak and kind of timid people, and no, I as a person, I'm very outgoing, I'm very sociable, I'm very and it's just an irritance that I've got anxiety. It's not who I am. So I do talk about it as a separate thing. I'm like, I'm not engaging with you. You can bog
Some
off.
people call it a name, don't they? Even the thoughts of their brain, they call them a name just to go, no, shush, that whatever name. I've heard that as well. So
it's quite funny, because you just think, or you've got like two little people, you've got your rational, and you're like, right, you're not winning this argument now, you can go away. And I suppose another major tip is keep doing the things that scare you. I think it's so hard, and that's so easy to say, but the more you let it win, the more you don't do things, the harder it gets. And it's about just keep doing it, and then your brain will realize there isn't anything to be afraid of.
Wonderful. Thank you so much again, Martha, for sharing all your experiences today. I'm sure that's going to be super, super useful, insightful for everyone who's been listening. And thanks again for the great work that you're doing. Again, it's lovely to hear about some of the work that you're doing in the community within Nottinghamshire as well. And I know that's really, really powerful stuff. So thank you so much.
Emily. Thank you very much.